Hi, my name is Gender Meowster, and I am 1 year, 6 months on HRT, testosterone specifically. I have three things to tell you all about today. So, first of all, in the last week or so, I've been really hustling about getting letters for surgery. So, and if you're squicked by surgery talk, like mute until you see the scene change. Just FYI. So I won't get into super details, but so I'm wanting to have a total hysterectomy and a metoidoplasty. The shorthand is meta, META. A simple one, very simple. And if you have questions about what that means, you can DM me later. I'll be happy to tell you about it. But so it's really hard to find a surgeon that'll do both in one surgery. It's technically possible to do both, but at least the surgeon. So there's only like, I don't know, between 5 and 10 surgeons in the country that'll do a meta. Um, Thankfully, a solid handful of those are on the West Coast, which is where I live, so that makes it easier. Um, but I was looking even just today at the folks who do both the histo and the meta, and there's not a ton of crossover. So I don't know if I can get into some place where I have two surgeons and one does one thing and the other one does the other thing, and we save um, on putting me under. I think what's more likely is it's going to have to be two separate procedures. I also imagine the waiting list for histo is much shorter than one for a meta. So, anyways, but I've got letters from two different therapists now, and I'm getting my letter from my MD doctor tomorrow. For those of you who don't know, there's a lot of letter getting you have to do when you're having these surgeries. Um, and specifically with the metoidoplasty, which there's two forms of bottom surgery. There's phalloplasty and metoidoplasty. Fallow is constructing a new thing, and meta is sort of tinkering with what you've already got going on. That's the simple version. Um, so uh, the waiting list for those more specific trans mask bottom surgeries is a lot longer because there's fewer people who do it. Um, so, anyways, but for bottom surgery, I need two letters from therapists instead of one. It's the only surgery that I've needed two therapist letters. And I vaguely remember when my spouse had her bottom surgery, she also needed two letters. So this is just sort of a gatekeepy thing that happens with trans surgeries. Um, that is like an additional financial barrier, an additional like executive function barrier. Like so many of us have ADHD and autism and are neurodivergent in some flavor, and it's like executive dysfunction is pretty common in the trans community, and so it's like, oh, here's a bunch of things to keep track of and work on, and like this is why it takes years. Anyways, so I have some anger about how gatekeepy surgeries can be, but that's not the point of today. So I'm going to keep going. Okay, so two other things. My skin continues to be angry. My physical skin, it's just there's acne everywhere. Even in places I didn't know you could have acne, so that's fun. Let's do a zoom in of my beard though. This is pretty cool. So that's all real. Look at these little lamb choppy guys. Yeah, very nice. For whatever reason, the underbeard is the darkest. Um, but that's fine. So this is a year and 6 months on T, um, and maybe 7 of those months has been on injectable HRT, which is when my bioavailability of testosterone made it to a standard man range, quote unquote. And the reason I tell you that is because if you look at me, you're like, wow, that's not a lot of growth for a year and a half on HRT, but it is pretty good for 7 months. Um, and there's a difference between microdosing and using gel for HRT and actually doing injections. Injections significantly improve the bioavailability of testosterone in my body, which means my body is like, oh, we're doing man things now. Let's do the man things instead of just like microdosing helped a lot with the mental dysphoria and like the in here stuff, but the actual injections is what's causing the physical transformation more dramatically. So that brings me to my last point. I stumbled upon a new fear this week that by microdosing before starting injectable tea, I've like dashed my hopes of having significant bottom growth. For those who don't know, the clitoris can actually get larger on testosterone. That's the thing that happens physiologically. So one of my concerns was, oh no, like my junk isn't going to grow because I microdosed for 11 months, so I wasted all of this time. And my body's just like, oh, we're just going to, keep it tiny because it was this little a bit of tea this whole time. But I talked to my doctor on Friday and mentioned that fear, and they said, yes, my doctor uses they them pronouns, lucky me. They said, no, actually, you're once the amount of tea in your body reaches that sort of male range, the traditional male range, the body for the next like 3 to 5 years is going to make the changes it's going to make as long as it continues to have that access to that hormone. So as long as I stay on T, like the bottom growth I'm going to have is what I would have had if I was a natal male. Um, well, I mean, within reason, right? Like it's, I'm not going to suddenly grow like a cis looking penis. That's not a realistic goal. But I will have as much growth as I would have had if I started on a standard male range amount of testosterone from the beginning. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if you're worried about microdosing ruining your chances of looking more masculine later, if that's a goal you're not sure you want, but maybe you want, don't worry about it. It's okay. That's what I learned this week. Okay, this is really long, but it's been like 2 months since I did a check in. So there you go.